as an important part of their identity, and then changing your sex becomes almost unthinkable. So is this more targeted to males?
Yeah. A lot of it is targeted towards males for sure. That's what transmaxing is about. Definitely. But yeah, I feel like yeah, it's like some sort of like male ego where it's like, they like subconsciously see women as lesser, or it's like a humiliating thing to do. And even if it would be better for them, they're just like too stuck in their own pride to do it. And I guess you could say like having that much pride is a mental disability to an extent. Like,
That I agree with.
if you refuse to take medicine or something like that as well, just because you're too proud and you think your body can handle it yourself, and then you die, well, you died because of your mental illness.
I can relate with the aspect of being, having some sort of mental illness, and of course I'm not going to disclose it because it is personal, but I am currently on medication for it and I am seeing help. However, I did find a lot of people that also have the same mental illness as I do too prideful to engage in having help. So maybe I can understand where you're coming from with this. Although it's very much new to me. I've only heard about Transmaxxing this year, like 4 months ago.
Oh
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
I know that like I heard about it when I joined, which I think it's been around 7 months now. Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe 8. Yeah, 8.
A emulating pregnancy. So transmaxers also want to emulate pregnancy to feel more, feminine.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's a little bit more to it. I think a lot of it comes down to like either trying to induce like, breastfeeding, or like just to get bigger tits in general.
I wanted to also know, did you feel some sense of community when dealing with other trans people? Like, do you feel more welcome with trans maxers or trans women?
I think the thing with trans maxes that I like more than like other trans faces is there's a whole lot less of like this sensitivity, and like, this like they're more accountable for their actions, and there isn't there isn't like this whole sensitivity thing where it's like it feels like you're walking on eggshells when you're trying to communicate. Like you're allowed to express yourself freely and open, and you'll likely just, get promoted in the approval system rather than, getting kicked out immediately from saying like one questionable thing.
What did you say that was questionable?
Um, I you wanna edgy hot take?
I mean, throw it.
Okay, well, one of them that I know riles up a lot of people is that I think that women's sports is more of a participation event. And this especially comes down from like how much strength I've lost since going on estrogen, and like just like all the other external factors where like some of them like use testosterone on their training times, and then for competition they like get off of it, and like all this other weird stuff. It all just kind of it just doesn't, sports in general just kind of seems like it's overrated.
I see. Um, what other crazy takes do you have that, got trans women wild up?
um, I don't know if I should be going off about all these now.
So it's okay, at
I,
least
I
to me.
I guess another one is like, there's like a big thing about like hug boxing and stuff where, you tell people they pass even if you don't honestly believe that and stuff. And that can be
Uh,
very harmful for people if they're like in a transphobic area, because, there's a very high stress on passing, or else, you will get like ridiculed and like discriminated against in public.
okay.
So
Well,
I know I'm like a little hug boxy, people have told me, but I try to be very realistic and, tell people when FFS will probably be needed if they want to pass, or if I think because like some people like the bar for passing is like varying depending on person to person, and if you look
That's
at like trans women all day, you're gonna like get used to knowing the features that are different between a trans woman and a cis woman, and like most people don't know the difference. So it's
okay.
like a lower bar for like a typical normie kind of situation.
Right, right, right. Um, uh, I'm just still thinking about question. Okay, so when you transitioned earlier, like socially transitioned as a teen, what were the first steps that you took? Like, what was in your head that made you go, okay, this is what I have to do to pass or feel comfortable?
Well, I was at like a state of depression that it was just like, I guess I was kind of like hun moding a little bit. Like, I didn't look the best, but like I said in my story, like I was already an outcast sort of, so no one talked to me before, and no one's talking to me now. So it was just like it was a good like step of like getting comfortable with going out like this for sure.
Mhm.
After that though, like I did start. I think I focused on looks a lot because like before I was still like identifying as a femboy and didn't truly feel like I was trans back then. Voice
Okay.
was like later on, like when I was about to legally change my name and like fully go on as a woman. That's when I like worked on voice and but yeah, it was mainly just looks at the start. Just like doing makeup, behaving as a female as well was like another big one I was working on early on.
Right. Okay. And you clearly have said that you edited the Transmaxxing manifesto yourself, or was it somebody else?
Um, I've put my story in there and I've contributed to it. I think
Okay.
I didn't edit too much if I did edit any of it. But yeah, I think it was Vintology and Athena, two other Politburo members that did the editing and like most of like the bulk of the manifesto.
And how do you feel today as a transmaxer?
Well, I'm very proud about being a transmaxer and I'm like very happy to like, present my opinions and stuff to the public and like why trans rights should be going in this direction kind of thing.
Right. And a lot of from the what I've gathered from the manifesto is that most of these people that do choose to transition for the social benefits of being a woman is because they felt lesser and if I can quote, feeling like a failure as a man. But somebody asked this question, which I was very much interested. They asked, why not go the opposite direction and try to be um, the extreme version of a man if you're already born as one instead of going through the process to be a trans max?
Well, some of that comes down to like preferences and stuff, to be honest. Like, if you do experience the opposite of AGP, the AAP, autoandrophilia, where, you're attracted to yourself as a male, that'd be a good reason to pursue such a hypermasculine kind of approach. For sure. Like, I think, yeah, it comes down to your preferences. Another big thing is, you don't really get too many more options from just like being a stronger man, even if your face is like kind of ugly and stuff. So, you know,
You
transmaxing could be better in that facet, but both
you
ways, I think you'd have like a lot of benefit from just like, trying to hyper masculinize if you don't have like gender dysphoria or AGP and stuff.
you speak a lot on, appearance and being ugly as a guy. Um, I would like to say that there's a lot of women out there that, are attracted to um men that are not really conventionally attractive. Do you think
I even explained that with myself as well, where yeah, I don't really have a taste in how men look as long as they're
yeah,
just strong. I said that
exactly.
myself. You are correct.
Yeah,
You are
yeah.
correct.
So do you feel like um if someone okay, so if a um man came to you and he wasn't not really confident within himself and he could alter himself but he's asking you for which direction he should go with. What advice would you give him?
Well, usually I kind of look at like the background information first, like, how old are they? Maybe like a picture of like what they look like. Ask them like how they feel about like being a woman because if it's like a lot of times it's like there's deeper emotions into it that I think most people can like point out if they like actually reflect on. Well, I noticed you didn't make a ask a question about like why we don't support like female to male transition.
Oh,
Do you already have enough about that?
um, I am still looking into female to male. I did went out with a guy that was, a female before. So that I only know like personal experience, right, from his side.
Yeah.
The reason I don't ask much is because society isn't really making a fuss about it. I'm more focusing on what is, the hot take at the moment, I guess.
Okay.
But yeah, but what was your opinion at least on the female to males?
I feel like there's like misconceptions about being a man, and like I feel like half of it is kind of like a little bit of a fad, and like
Mm.
if anything, like for the most part, like testosterone's a pretty messed up hormone. If anything, it also changes how you look very well. If anything, that one should be delayed later, if even given the choice to be given to FTMs, just because it's much easier to pass from just being on testosterone than it is to like avoid masculinization going to a woman. Another thing is like, yeah, there's a misconception. I think they think like
Do
being a
you
man, there's like more support and stuff, even though that's like more of a female privilege.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you believe that gender dysphoria is real, or um do you feel like you can be a trans max and have gender dysphoria?
You can transmax and have gender dysphoria. Like after all, that still betters your life. Like, lessening the suffering still benefits your life. Um, shoot. But I do think that like, us as people were like more malleable than like we like to give ourselves credit for. Usually
Okay.
it's because we don't want to change or feel like we don't want to change. And that's what stops us from doing it. Like I repressed a lot and I felt like I didn't want to change even though like after changing this truly feels like who I was meant to be.
Well, if you don't mind me asking, are you black yourself?
Yeah, I'm black.
Interesting.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's just that like a lot of my personal life isn't really that interesting. I guess maybe the relevant part might be that I live in Sweden, not America, and I have studied like physics and mathematics. I guess maybe this gives me a better perspective. I'm not like stuck in the American framework when it comes to moral questions.
I have more of an Italian mentality. I was born in Italy, so it's very black and white, but still trying to be understanding. Um, so when it comes to American, politics and ethics, I'm also very foreign to it. So yeah,
Yeah, I
I
think something like Transmaxxing would be a lot less likely to emerge from an American because in America you have this Christian sexual morality that is very prominent.
mm,
But
yeah.
in Sweden we don't really have the same views among the public.
No, that's true. The people are more interested in the US at the moment. Okay, I'm ready.
Let's see if Junglebunny is ready as well.
Bunny, are you ready?
Yes, I say I'm Bunny. I'm Bunny and I'm 23. Well, actually 24, starting like last month.
Okay. And what do you identify yourself as?
I'm a trans woman, but I guess I'm a trans maxer too.
Okay. And what were the reasons for you transitioning?
So, I faced a lot of backlash being like a feminine male in society and like my community. And I was definitely pushed into transitioning in a lot of ways. Also, like my dating options were really like bad at the time, so I felt like transitioning would improve them, and it definitely has.
When you say your community, which community are you referring to?
Like the black community, like as far as being like a really feminine like gay man, I felt like a lot of like backlash. Like people like were really confused why I was living that lifestyle and like why I wasn't like transitioning or trying to look more feminine.
And where did you grow up in?
Like the East Coast of the United States. I don't want to like disclose exactly, but it was like a kind of like urban area, like a very rough area.
Mm. And you is your story in the manifesto at the moment?
Oh,
No,
not yet. I don't know if we're gonna put it in.
It's okay.
it's not included
And
currently.
do you mind telling us your story from the beginning to today?
So I've kind of like I had a history of like being feminine already before like, at the idea of transitioning, but once I realized the idea of transitioning, like I kind of just went into it. So I grew up really gender non-conforming. Like I've always like worn like feminine clothing. I've always been like more stereotypically feminine than like most boys in my area. So like it kind of put a target on my back growing up. So by the time I was like in elementary school, like I had my first boyfriend. I was already like actively like dating and stuff like that. And people really were not happy about it. I was facing a lot of backlash. My family wasn't really accepting of me. Um, People were threatening violence against me and stuff like that too. Um, and once I got to middle school, I was like really like heavily in line because like I just really didn't feel like that comfortable like interacting with people around me, like having friends and like I was kind of like more of like a hermit. I didn't really go outside much. So I was really like heavily involved in like internet culture. And through that, like using 4chan and like different boards and stuff like that, like I found about Transmaxxing and like at the time I didn't really seem that interested in it, but I was really interested in like the transitioning aspect of that. Because my idea was if people don't like me in my current body, presenting like as an effeminate man, if I became more feminine and looked more like a woman, people would treat me a lot differently. Like they may not be disgusted by me, they might be like think that my femininity is like normal and like acceptable. So I secretly started like buying like hormones online, like via like different websites, like DIYing. Because at the time my parents didn't really accept me either. So I would do that, and then I started having some changes, and people started treating me a lot better. Because even though they could still like remember that I was like a quote unquote male before, my appearance was a lot more like digestible and like more acceptable like in general, like seeing a feminine woman or like someone who looks almost like a woman is way better than like seeing like a man cross-dressing.
Okay. And you say that you were buying hormones online. So, do you mind? Oh, sorry. Do you mind sharing where you have purchased them?
So like there's this website, I don't, it's pretty popular, it's like called DIY HRT Cafe, and it just has like a list of like websites. The site I used to use before isn't even like working anymore. I don't use, it's not like existing, but like all you have to do is get like a PayPal account, and you could just like link like a gift card to it and stuff. And now how basically my hormones is, I'll either get like a guy to pay for it, or I'll use like my money I got from like gifts, like gift cards, like you know when you have like a birthday or something, and your parents give you a gift card because they don't know what they give you, or like a family member get that for you. I'll basically use that to buy HRT.
Okay. And what kind of HRT project did you use?
So I've used a lot. I've used like estradiol in like pill form, patch form. I've pretty much used every form of estradiol out there. Um, I used spironolactone early on because like I didn't really know that there were options really back then.
Yeah.
Um, I used progesterone, and finasteride. So those are like the couple I've used.
And how did your body change while being on the medication?
I started out pretty young, so like I would say I have a pretty drastic change as far as like transitioning goes. Like I had breast, my figure like curved out a little more, my face was a lot more feminine, and like I started passing really early on too. So it was just like overall, it was a pretty good experience as far as like transitioning goes.
Okay. And do you say you're happier now?
Yeah, I am.
And a lot of transmaxers do admit to having autogonophilia. Do you feel like you do you have autogonophilia as well?
I mean, I think that's a complicated question, honestly, because like I wouldn't say I have like, some traction to like being feminine or being seen as feminine. Like I've experienced like a lot of homophobia in my life, so I do experience more of like a fetishization of that versus like, oh, being feminine is like a turn on or like a sexual gratification thing. Like it's called, I think, a masochistic emasculation fetish, I think.
Hmm.
So I do have that. Like the idea of being like emasculized or being like degraded for being like same-sex attracted is like a turn on. So I will say that was a motivator as well because I was really actively emasculating myself and like my community was like people around me were like reacting to that. So it was kind of like a sexual thing as well. Does it make sense? I don't know if it
Yeah,
does.
yeah. And but you've mentioned that your family uh wasn't pretty much around, or they accepted you in some sort. If I'm correct me
They
if
were around, but they didn't accept it basically. And like I kind of did it behind their back.
yeah.
And once they realized it was like not a good like relationship, so I moved out really early on in my life, like as soon as possible, essentially.
Okay. And at what age
I'm
did you?
better terms now, though.
It's okay. At what age did you move out?
Like around 16.
Oh, that's really early.
Yeah, I was like living on people's couches and like with friends and family mostly. And then like once I got old enough, I just got a job and like had my own place basically.
Okay, okay. And at the moment, you're with a partner,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't. Do you mind disclosing your sexuality?
That's such a complicated question. So I guess I will be considered a straight trans woman, but I don't really identify that way. Like I still strongly identify as like I guess homosexual or like gay because that's kind of like integral to like my a masochistic emasculation fetish. So technically, I'm a straight trans woman, but I don't identify that way.
Okay. Right. So, what was the? I think I did ask, but you transitioned more for the benefits of being a woman, or did you also have gender dysphoria? So, what was your reason for transitioning?
So it was more for the benefit. Honestly, I didn't really get gender dysphoria till like later on, as far as like not feeling like I was feminine enough, not feeling like I met the standards of femininity I have for myself. But it
Yeah.
was mostly for the benefits, honestly, to like improve how people see me and like or, like people self perception, people's perception of me, basically. Like I wanted them to see me in a better light and like treat me differently.
Okay. Um. So, what? How did your friends take that at the time?
So I literally lost all my friends. No one wanted to interact with me at all. It was pretty bad. But I once I started passing more and looking more feminine, I had more female friends. Like I used to have a gaming group I played with my male friends. We'll play like Minecraft and like different games here and there, like Call of Duty and stuff. And they didn't really mind I was like, quote unquote a femboy or like I was cross dressing or whatever. They thought it was kind of weird and like kind of gross, but they kind of tolerated it. But once I started getting like boobs and stuff, they're kind of like disgusted with me and like they kind of like ostracized me a little bit.
Did you attend school at the time of your transition?
So yes, I did. I still went to school. And I kind of was already like dressing as a woman at school anyway. Like I was wearing like skirts or like I was wearing like more form-fitting like pants and stuff.
Yeah.
So how people like treated me definitely changed. Like they were kind of grossed out by it originally, but after a while, like they said I was like really consistent with it, and like nothing that they could say would probably change how like I'm living my life. So they kind of started like easing up on me and like being more understanding. So
Mm-hmm.
it started off really badly, and like it kind of transitioned to like a more like neutral or like good part. Because like the whole time I was like dressing more feminine, there was always like the idea that, oh, this person's gonna become a tranny, or like, oh, they're a shemo, or they're like a faggot, or whatever. Oh, can I say those words? Sorry, I don't know
No,
if that's. But like, it was kind of like already like spoken around like the school, so it wasn't like a cultural shock. It was more like people were like grossed out by it. But it was kind of always the idea that everyone had that it was going to happen eventually.
And at what age did you start HRT?
I started at 15.
15. Wow. So how did you know about Transmax first, or did you know about being trans first? Or what
Um,
was
it was like a
the
mix of both. Like,
okay.
I heard about Transmaxxing through like 4chan and stuff like that, but this was like the very, 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 very beginning one post like I saw on 4chan. And I don't even know if that was like, it was like a meme post or like a real one, or like the actual Transmaxxing thing. It was like this meme with like this anime girl. And I kind of knew about trans people in general because like people would like say I was a trans person or like perceive me that way. And also like my area has like a large like amount of like trans escorts. So if I was like downtown in the city, I would like see like trans women like here and there, and like they'll be hopping in cars and stuff like that. And like big part of my upbringing was like my parents are like, oh, if you keep dressing like that, you're gonna be a prostitute. You're gonna be selling yourself. Like no one's gonna want you. You're gonna die alone and stuff like that. So I think that's part of the reason why my parents were like so against me like transitioning, because like they felt like it was a pipeline kind of like, oh, first you start being gay, then you start cross dressing, and then become like a prostitute. But in reality, like there's so many options for trans women as far as like careers go. It's not just like escorting or like prostitution. You could literally be any job and be trans.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I agree. What's your opinion on SRS?
I don't really support it honestly. Like I have a lot of friends who have it personally. And the results are so mixed. I don't really think it's worth it. Like some girls looks like completely unclockable, looks like a normal vagina, but for some girls it looks like a hole. Like literally, you could tell it's like a trans vagina from like a mile away. And some of it has like smells too that like are not natural. Because I've been around like female women like with vaginas. Like it does not smell like it's rotting.
Mm,
So
so
I
you have
think like the risk for complications is like so high it's not even worth it.
I see. I see. Um, what's your opinion on feminization surgery
I've
for
had a
your
couple already.
okay, and what age and what specific procedure did you get?
So I got my boobs done like 2 or 3 years ago. So I think like what 20, and I got my face done recently, like maybe like 2 months ago, and I'm probably gonna get my boobs done again sometime in like November.
Why so, if you don't mind me asking?
I want to get them bigger.
Okay. And do you think that if surgery was more accessible, cheaper, or even free, do you believe other transmaxers would have SRS, although it's advised against in the manifesto?
I do, because I think the cost is like a big factor for a lot of people. Like the idea, like even if you go through insurance, you still have to pay like a portion of it, and that for like the risk of being botched or like having like your body like ruined permanently. Not many people are willing to go to that risk. And I feel like that for surgeries in general. Like I feel like a lot of people, the biggest like factor is like the cost issue.
Okay. Do you feel like if things were cheap for you as well, you would get more procedures that were invasive?
Um, I don't know, because like I get my procedures through like jobs I work at, so I don't know if that would affect me because like they're pretty much free when I go through insurance, so it's not really a difference.
Okay.
But I think
And
more people get procedures done, definitely.
yeah. Um, so is that all procedures that you've done, or do you have any more procedures that you don't mind disclosing with us?
I've had like a lot of fillers done. Like I've had like chin filler, cheek filler, lip filler. But besides that, I felt like laser hair removal. But that's all I had done so far. I've like planned for other things. Like I want to get like multiple BBLs like out there in my boobs, and I'm thinking about orchiectomy, but I'm not really sure about the benefits or like risks of it yet. So I'm still like weighing those.
There isn't really any benefits with it if you're on a good HRT.
Yeah, I don't know. It looks cuter to me too. I'm just like still thinking if I'm gonna get it or not. I'm not sure.
Do you know the difference between avatar maxing and drag maxing?
Avatar maxing is like when you have like a female profile picture, like a feminine picture for like your profile, or like you like have a feminine persona like online, like on Twitter, like your profile's like, oh, I don't know, like Jessica or something, and it's a she her, and people treat you like a Jessica. So that would basically be like you're not really transitioning, but you have like a feminine persona online. And drag maxing is like finster, like basically being a femboy and like portraying like a feminine image and like receiving the benefits from that. But a lot of the benefits aren't really like permanent. Like I know with me, like when I was like 15, I was starting to masculinize and like the femboy thing really wasn't working anymore. So imagine you're like 20, like it's really not gonna work anymore.
What's your opinion on trans women or transsexuals?
So I identified as a transsexual for a long time, but now I'm starting to realize like more and more that I'm like not really, I guess, quote unquote stereotypically trans. Like I feel like a lot of trans women like have really intense gender dysphoria and that's the cause of them medically transitioning, but I'm starting to realize more and more that that's not really true for me. But I think
does the word transsexual a lot of the time just refer to people transitioning medically?
I mean, yeah, that's true. But people that also have their own terms. Like I have this person I know named like she thinks that you're not transsexual unless you like get bottom surgery and like you have the urge for bottom surgery. It's like all types of stuff. So people have their own self-perception of what transsexual means. But as far as medically transitioning, I guess I'll be considered transsexual. But I don't really identify that much as that, honestly. I just say I'm a woman or like I'm a trans woman.
Yeah. The manifesto mentions a lot about having a feminine voice to, pass. What's your opinion on trans people that don't have a feminine voice or that don't pass as much, that still identifies as a transmaxer?
I mean, I feel like if that it will benefit them to have a more feminine voice, definitely. But you can pass without having a passable voice. Like I've seen so many like cis women that have deeper voices than me, and like I would say I have a pretty deep voice for a trans woman, honestly.
Yeah.
So it's a benefit, but it's not necessarily always necessary all the time.
Okay. And it says although the author of the manifesto has explained that it is sort of bait. What's your opinion on the statement that being cis is a mental illness?
It says can be a mental illness.
It sounds like I think it's like more of a joke, honestly, or meme. But
Yeah,
I think it's funny. If someone knows that transitioning can improve their life and they choose not to, and like there's very little cons to them transitioning, that kind of could be considered a mental illness because what's really stopping them besides their own mind? But I don't know. I feel like people should make their own choices. Like just like me, I feel like transitioning is honestly just a choice. Like I don't really consider it like the quote unquote like solid thing that's like you're born super trans or anything. I feel like it's just a choice we make in life. So that's how I treat it.
And do you the author also mentioned that watching anime could help you find the mannerisms that are more feminine. Do you engage in anime?
That's not the purpose.
I mean, I watch anime. I think the girls act cute in there, but I can more get like my feminine behavior from my friends, honestly. Like I feel like every day I learn. Also, me and my parents are on better terms, so like I learn a lot from my mom now. Like, too. Like overall, like after all the years, like I've been like living on my own. Like me and my parents are like back together. Like we're on better terms now. I think it's because they kind of realized like, oh well, she's gonna be a girl and there's nothing we can do about it, so we might as well just accept it at this point. It's been like years. Like either have a daughter or don't have a child at all in their mind. So I learned from my mother, I learned from a lot of women, but I guess anime can like help if you don't have any friends and like you're like a social person that struggles to talk to people.
I think anime is
Yeah.
more about like an inspirational thing and enjoyment. Like it's maybe more
I mean, that's
idealized a
true.
lot of the time.
Yeah, because most women don't act like anime girls unless they're like, I don't know, trying to sell you something.
Right. Now I understand. Um, so you're only attracted to men, you've disclosed.
Hmm.
Okay. And do you feel like you might try to emulate some experiences that are associated with motherhood, such as breastfeeding or emulating a pregnancy?
Yeah, when it
I
comes to
mean,
like just a correction, when it comes to breastfeeding, like this is something you can do for real.
hmm I mean, like, I don't think, me personally, nothing against breastfeeding or trans women who like want to emulate pregnancy or like want to breastfeed. Me personally, I don't really like want to do that. Like for me, I do want to have children like with my partner, and we're probably going to adopt or do a surrogate. But the idea of like breastfeeding or like simulating pregnancy with someone else's child is just kind of like not really cool to me. That's my opinion. I think it's okay for other people to do it, but for me, I don't think I would ever do that.
Okay. Um, the manifesto also mentions that certain transvaxxers felt like a failure as a man before transitioning or making the decision to. Did you ever feel that way?
Like organophilia.
No, feeling like a failure before you
Oh,
transition
failure
because
as a man.
yeah.
Um, I mean, not just me personally. I didn't really feel like that. I
Okay.
didn't really run from like my male self. I kind of just like slowly morphed over time. Like I wasn't really a masculine man, or like I never really tried to be like a man growing up, really. So I can't really be a failure if I never really tried. Like I was
Right.
still a boy when I transitioned. I never got to the manhood like aspect.
And have you taken any medications apart from HRT? So that includes
Um,
antidepressants or anything.
mm, no, I never have. I had to think about it for a bit, but I've been hospitalized, but I never got like had to like take any psychotropic medicines or anything, or like any like mental health medicine. No.
So you haven't mentioned that you have seen a medical professional. Have you seen anyone to diagnose you with anything or prescribe you anything?
So I didn't see any like medical professionals till like I was like 18. And then I saw like an endocrinologist, and I've kind of like been through a lot of them because I feel like a lot of the endocrinologists won't take a patient who's already like DIY HRT. They feel like it's kind of unsafe because like the person might like done bad doses or like taken dangerous doses and stuff. So I've been through
Yeah.
a lot of endocrinologists, but I see one now. I've seen one since I was like 18.
And are you happy with the service that they're offering you at the moment?
Currently yes, but I've been through a couple, so I kind of know what to look for.
Okay. And what's your opinion on female to male transitioners?
I feel like it's dangerous, but if it makes them happy, I definitely support it. I just wish they would take like responsibility for their actions. Like for me, I decided to transition at a young age. I'm probably sterile. I probably can have children, and that's fine with me. I accepted that risk when I started transitioning. I feel like a lot of like FTMs, when they start medically transitioning, they don't understand the long-term effects and the risks, so they typically end up making the majority of detransitioners. So I wish they would accept more responsibility for their actions versus like make it feel like, oh, if I didn't transition, I would have died. I would have jumped off a bridge if I didn't transition tomorrow. So I had to do this immediately, and I needed to do this like super fast, and I just didn't think about it. I just did it, and now I regret it. So that's my biggest issue with FDMs. I don't feel like anything like negative about them. I don't feel like they shouldn't be allowed to transition. I feel like that's their own choice personally. But I think we all need to take accountability.
Okay. And this question is directed more to Vinto. You do say that transmaxing is more exclusive for male to female. Do you feel like there will be a movement in the future or people that will come out that think the opposite and say that there's more benefit in being a man in society, so they transition to have more benefit, as a male in society? Do you feel like that could happen in the future?
I mean, there are all kinds of movements and stuff, but I don't see it gaining much traction.
This is more of like racial questions towards Bunny. So we're both black. And of course there's a whole movement of Pan-Africanism going on.
So, I actually grew up like really heavily involved in like Pan Africanism and like Hotep stuff, like that kind of vibes. So, I guess I have like a personal experience like related to it. I definitely support it. I've pretty much been pro-black like a lot of times in my life, but I've kind of always like faced a lot of backlash. Like my dad used to say, "Oh my God, our ancestors will be disappointed in like the lifestyle you're living," and like how
Mm-hmm.
like he's ashamed to show me him to show me to his friends and like have me around his friends because like they have a belief that like transgenderism is like when the white man's emasculating black men and forcing them to become women to like destroy the black home and like stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I guess like I'm becoming less pro-black over time, but I still have the same political beliefs as far as like racial solidarity, like stuff like that. Me personally, I am like Afro-Caribbean and like black. I'm like a mixture of both. So Pan-Africanism benefits to me because like it kind of lets me like merge my like cultures, you know? Like
Yeah.
I kind of try to hang out with like the Caribbean kids like when I was growing up, and I kind of like didn't really feel comfortable around them. And I don't really feel comfortable. And the black kids are like, oh yeah, they would call me either like an African booty scratcher or they'll call me like an island N-word
Mm-hmm.
or like say like derogatory things about that, saying, oh yeah, your island doesn't have running water and shit like that. So I think it's a good thing. It's just like a really complex issue as far as like transness goes. I don't feel like trans people will ever be accepted in like as a term as Pan-Africanism or like pro-black anything goes. I feel like anytime like black trans women try to involve themselves in that, they kind of face a lot of backlash. Like I know for like Black Lives Matter, they there used to be like a lot of trans people involved and like queer women involved, and like a lot of the black males didn't really like enjoy that and think it was right. They felt like it was kind of like promoting with what the white people wanted to do, like, and also they said that a lot of Jewish people were funding them and stuff like that. So it's like, I don't really have a big opinion, but I kind of just stay out of like the racial politics for the most part. I have a white partner myself, so that's just a bigger issue than
No,
there.
I'm basically I'm gonna ask in more aspects I am very interested in. When it comes to racial, I'm still learning. I'm scared to enter that territory because it changes every 5 seconds. But
Hmm.
are you religious yourself?
I grew up religious, yes, but I'm not religious currently.
And did you feel some sort of guilt while transitioning from any community, if it's religious or racial or um sexual? Did you feel like any sort of guilt for doing what you were doing?
Yeah, I had a lot of shame. Like, I literally went to church every day, even when I was starting to transition. Like, my parents like have really advocated for it because they felt like if I went to church, I'll feel differently about how I wanted to live my life.
Yeah.
And the last time I went to church was like a couple years ago, and literally they had a whole sermon about how homosexuality is immoral and how we're gonna burn in hell, and how I should be ashamed of my sins. And it honestly like triggered something in me because like I was so happy in like the way I was living my life. Like facing like such extreme like resistance really made me feel like really depressed and like honestly damn near suicidal because like I was raised in that environment, and I kind of always felt like what I was doing was technically like immoral and wrong. So it kind of like amplified those feelings.
I see. Do you feel like you would have still felt guilty without that pressure?
Probably not. What made you want to research transmaxing?
So I tend to be a debater. I debate a lot, almost about everything. We can even debate about pancakes and waffles. But when it came to trans issues, at first I felt indifferent. Just lived my life till I did my research on autogonophilia. Then
Mhm.
that raised a lot of turf concerns with, the community that I was involved in. Till I found out that there's a difference between people who have gender dysphoria, who don't have dysphoria, who want to transition, and autogonophilic people, right?
I
Mhm.
mean,
So when
I just have to clarify and mention here that
yeah.
autogonophilia is actually normal in females in general. So it's not really
Mm.
disqualifying someone as truth trans, whatever that even means. But go ahead, continue.
I mean, I think it's more autosexuality. Like, I wouldn't call it organophilia, but it's pretty much the same thing. But go on.
Right. So when I found those three and everything in between that, I'm aware of, because I'm pretty sure there's a lot more out there. That's when I discovered from a mutual of mine about transmaxing. Um, I then looked into it, and of course, it was interesting. Wasn't surprised that it was happening, but still had questions. Only found out the manifesto. Only found the manifesto yesterday. And found the Discord in the manifesto, and then I joined to pretty much ask questions or just observe. What the discussions are being had, so I can at least understand. Um, Although I did see a little bit in a few updated versions of the manifesto, still a lot of questions were being left, and that's when I joined a voice called that Val was in, and started interviewing away pretty much. Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. Interesting.
Yeah.
So, like, bisexual beginning transmaxer and like a more gay transmaxer. So, the two aspects.
Okay, so there's different,
It's just like a different, like, I see it more as like a beginning point. Like, for Val, she was more like straight or bisexual in the beginning, and me, I was more in the beginning. But we kind of have the same endpoint. Like, Val's like pretty much, I guess, bisexual now. Would you say that, Val?
Yeah, I'd say I'm more bisexual. I used to
And
think I
like,
was straight, and then yeah, I was more gay, but after being on HRT, I'm actually bi.
yeah, and for me, I was gay, and now I guess I'm be straight now. So yeah, two like different stories.
few questions on for the author. Say that the whole purpose of being transmax is to have benefits from society as a female, right? Why do you see that women have more benefits in society?
I think that being male is good when you're successful, but when you're not, so it's generally better to be female. So I think being male only works for some people.
So you feel like basically women have it easier in life, so why not be one?
I'm not sure if being trans female is necessarily easier, but I think it can be a lot more enjoyable for many people. I think often male life, even when used, it can be very boring and not very fun.
I see. And for Val, do you feel like now, presenting yourself as a woman has gave you more freedom compared to when you were a male?
For the most part, yes. There was one part where I had an unsettling reality where, I might not be too safe outside anymore in the dark, but other than that, I feel like I'm much more liberated and, much more free when there's like people around to, protect me in case something like that was to happen.
Hmm. What about you, Bunny? Do you feel like you have been having more benefits after transitioning?
Yeah, like when I was like, I guess my dating options are definitely different. Before, like most people that are interested in me were like gay men that wanted like a more of a 50-50 relationship and like that were feminine themselves. But now that like I'm transitioned, most of the men that I'm willing to date that are willing to date me, they're like more masculine. They typically are more willing to be providers. They're typically more attractive. So that's one of the biggest benefits for me personally. Like I feel like if I just continued to masculinize more and more versus like transitioning younger, I probably would have to date the same men that I was, well, the same boys I was dating when I was younger. And that probably would have been the best life for me. I probably would have been miserable and transitioned later and probably hadn't have the best results. And also, as far as like freedom goes, I definitely have a lot more freedom to like live life. I felt like when I was still like a feminine boy, I really had to watch my back in certain areas. I felt like, oh my God, someone's gonna like call me like an F slur or like beat me up or like try to rob me. Now I feel like if something happens, me like being looking like a woman, people are more willing to protect me and like make sure I'm safe. So like if some guy tries to like harass me in the street and like someone sees him, they're more likely to stop and intervene versus me as a gay man or like a feminine man. They might just look and laugh or something.
Has that ever happened to you?
Like been harassed in public as like a gay man or like be saved as a woman.
Both.
Um, yes, as a woman, people definitely help me. Like either if like I don't have enough money for a bus, or like a guy will like stand up like, oh yeah, I gotta help you. Or like if I'll be buying a meal and like some guy next to me will offer to pay for it. Like there's definitely been like a lot of financial benefits as far as that, and I've definitely been protected more as a woman versus as a gay man. I feel like as in the black community, we kind of like throw our gay people to the wolves and don't really care what happens to them, honestly. Like if someone gets beat up for being gay or being feminine or looking a certain way, the first thing the black community says is, oh, like why are you dressed like that? Why are you looking like that?
Yeah.
Not like, oh, why did that happen?
Right. And I've asked Val this question previously yesterday, but if you did not transition, do you feel like you would have been happy as you are right now?
I don't think I've been happy. I mean, I feel like certain people in my life will be happier, like my old male friends, and maybe my father would be more like proud of me probably, but I don't think I would have been proud of myself honestly. What it became.
Okay. And for Val, I had this question yesterday, but it slipped my mind. You said that you do have autogynephilia. This question was asked by one of my friends. Do you feel any sexual gratification when you do enter in female spaces?
Um, no, not really. Like, I mean, at one point there was a little bit, but it's like it's more of the thoughts rolling in my head rather than, trying to take advantage of women. Feeling like I pass well enough to belong in such a space.
Yeah, it's like the validation aspect. Like,
Yeah.
oh, women are comfortable around me. Like women don't care about me being there. Like I could just walk through and no one even like looks at me once.
But
Like that, it's
yeah, like,
that excitement of that. Not like, oh, I'm so hard, I'm gonna jerk off everywhere.
yeah, a lot of this also changed when I was like went on HRT and started to, have the effects of estrogen take over. I don't have that experience anymore, is what I'm saying.
Have you like met a trans person before, like in person?
I've dated a trans person, yes.
Oh my God, how was it?
He was female to male. The experience wasn't great for him, of course. It wasn't great for me either. Lots of suicidal thoughts. Um, Lots of like difficulties academically and socially. He did it more for the dysphoria aspect. He did have dysphoria and he was on a waiting list, so there was a lot of waiting happening.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Stopped going out. He still came to. He flew over to come and see me, although I was in a relationship with, um, a woman this time. I was very respectful. I would say we were better as friends instead of in a relationship, just because um we were both 14, 15 years old, so we were very young. We didn't understand what was going on. He didn't understand what was going on with his body and mind. um but let's say today, if I would go out with a trans person, yes. But depending on their lifestyle. So I don't really have a preference. More like I need somebody with the same mindset as I do.
Oh, that's interesting. I don't know. This is coming from a trans person who would not date another trans person, so it's like really interesting seeing like your experience.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't dated a trans woman, but I wouldn't say I wouldn't, but if I would, some relationships tend to just be platonic, even with just my opposite sex. And if they stay the opposite sex, it depends on the person. It can either be platonic or sexual, depending on who you are. So, I cannot say no, I wouldn't date this and that, but um, it would be very complicated.
That's true.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions for
No.
her? Okay.
Okay, this is the end of episode 15 of the Transmaxxing podcast. I hope you have a nice day forward.